Support Laneside. Get something cool. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Drill Room, the show that is about you, the bowler, driven by you, the bowler. As always, I am the bearded beast, Rob Johnson. Yeah, we finally got a Chiron on there. Imagine that. You can see I'm in a t-shirt and a ball cap today, so it looks like we might be doing a little bit of physical work. So we're gonna have a lot of fun on today's show. Got a lot of questions we're gonna get to. We're gonna talk about the World Series of Bowling Shark Championships, how that finished up. We're gonna take a time and look at proper setup and foot positioning on the lanes. It's the setup is where we start from, so we always want to make sure that we start with a good, solid foundation. So we're going to take a little bit of time and look at that. We're also going to get some first impressions of the new equipment. Got a chance to throw it yesterday briefly, and we're going to be shooting the reviews for those this weekend, so they'll be up probably Monday, Tuesday. All sorts of stuff and more. But we got to get to the show. So don't forget, if you like what you're watching here in the Drill Room, make sure that you follow us here on Twitch. We're still waiting to be contacted by our contest winner for our autographed Parker Bone III poster. Still haven't heard from them. I'm going to contact them again. If we don't hear from them in another couple of weeks, we'll put it back out there for everyone who's a member. And we'll get that thing given away. Let's see who's here. Hey, Dodge Viper. Hey, Vincent Mobile. Hello. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. Remember to follow us, like I said, here on Twitch. You can also find us on social media at lanesidereviews.com. That'll take you to our Facebook. You can also find us on Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Hee-Haw, all sorts of stuff. Plenty of fish. All the good stuff. Just look up hashtag TEAMLSR or Laneside Reviews. Hershey Scourge just got my gem in today, speed dominant, and I'm having it laid out 50 by 4.5 by 40. Thoughts? Ideal for smooth motion? Absolutely. Yeah, that looks good. We're getting right into the questions right off the bat. Yeah, Hershey, that looks awesome. It's gonna be good mid lane. Ooh, look, my chest is like see-through. Good mid lane, a lot of flare, and it's not going to want to spin up as soon as it hits the lane, but it's still gonna want to spin up fast. So it's gonna have a lot of mid lane read to it. So that looks pretty good. All right. So why don't we take a look here at the Shark Championships. Yeah, I know, that username is just the best. Hershey's username is wonderful. It's great. So let's head over to the internet here. Where'd the internet go? There it is. Okay, so we've got Kevin. That's not how you spell Kevin. Where's Ralph Garman when you need him? No, Kevin Williams, awesome guy, really good. You probably see him on stuff with Packy Hanrahan, with the house bowling, left-handed, two-hander. Oh boy, he won with urethane last night. I guess we got no integrity. Awesome guy. Really happy to see him win last night. The show was quite interesting, actually. It would have been a good one to do a watch-along with because there was a ton of striking. Looking back at it, Belmo defeated Simo 264 to 250. Really, one hit difference. And that kind of set the tone for the entire show. Belmo then got through poor Jason Sterner. Jason Sterner is one of my favorite people. He's super friendly, super good to talk, not only just bowling stuff with, but just in general. Such a friendly guy. Doesn't he find himself down 66 pins in the fourth frame of his game? The poor guy goes blower 710, swishing 710, and then I think it was either a Greek church or most of a Greek church. But like he just, like 3 opens. The guy didn't miss the pocket. The last shot that creeped just a little bit high was only maybe a board and a half high. You'd expect to leave something small, you know, maybe drop out a 610 or a smaller split punching through the center, but not like the way he did. Like, it was awful. I felt so bad for him because you could see it on his face. He's fallen into that kind of Chris Barnes zone where his performances on TV aren't showing how good of a bowler he is, because he is insanely talented. So I felt so bad. I kept thinking that he needed a ball a little earlier for all those 710s, but he never did until the 10th. Yeah. In kind of looking at what was going on, he was throwing the BIGFOOT, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, to try to get a certain look. He was trying to get a fast response down lane without it having such a short hook zone and having it roll forward as much, which is I think why he was going with the BIGFOOT. Because the BIGFOOT is a sneaky asim, I've learned. It's a very sneaky asim. And you see him making that change at the end, and he was just crushing the pocket. I agree with you. I felt bad for him. After poor, I mean, it wasn't even that far of a match too, because he ended up battling back. Once he got through that, he pretty much had it the rest of the game. He lost 236-203. Like, he made up 30 pins in those last 5 frames. That's pretty good. Then Belmo went on to face Chapman. AJ Chapman, new to the Brunswick team and Ebonite. And Chapman comes out 237-225, ending Belmo's run. He was trying to become the first person ever to run the stepladder back to back since Bill Vint, the late Bill Vint, who just passed away this week, who was the media person for the PBA, another awesome guy. But here is a staggering stat for you. Through Belmo's 3 games, he struck 76% of the time. Now, I know we all like to think that we're real good and that we can strike a ton. But if you've ever charted out your games, striking 76% of the time, that's a lot of strikes. Like, that is, and you think on that pattern, 48 feet, really just a strip of oil down the middle. You don't have a lot of miss room in that. For him to average that high is just almost unfathomable. There really is a reason why he is that good of a player. I mean, he can do things that other people can't do. Sorry, my microphone's flipping around here. Trying to find a good spot for it, but it doesn't like t-shirts. And then, of course, we went on to Kevin Williams versus AJ in an incredible thrilling match. You think it came right down to the 10th frame. AJ got up with a chance to force a tie. Left 2 pins, forced Kevin to get up and double and at least 9 in the 10th frame, which was not given. You look at how many 2-4-8-10s, 2-10s have been left just on the show. That was, it was not easy work. And if you actually go back, there's a really cool thing. If you go back and watch when he throws his last shot and they show the slow motion of his face, it comes off his hand. You see his eyes goes like this. Because he knew he missed it inside. He absolutely knew he missed it inside. And I'm pretty sure he was waiting for a big 4 there. But he did. Like Randy said, he threw it hard enough that he got it just enough pocket to at least get 9. He did strike. But very thrilling match. And to see him break down at the end, it's great to see these new winners being emotional, getting out there and really showing how much the game means to them. I'm not so hot with all the swearing that we're seeing. A lot of cussing going along on bowling right now. A lot of people dropping F-bombs. I guess maybe that's showing my age. I was always brought up, especially for the Pro Tour, got to keep it cleaner, got to keep it family friendly, not so many F-bombs, not so many things like that. But I mean, I think we've heard at least two a broadcast all week. So not so happy about that, but happy to see emotion at least, raw emotion. Guilty as charged. Yep, they happen. You know what? Emotion happens. If we didn't have emotion, you wouldn't get that excitement. You wouldn't get that rush when you bowl. Letting it out is totally okay. However, sometimes we let it get a little bit too much to us, and it can come out in non-constructive ways. Some of them come out with a lot of vitriol, like Sean Rash's did. Some of them come out as exclamations of pure disbelief, like Jason Sterner's did. Some of them are just pure joy, just like Kevin's was. Just make your shot. Just make your shot. Whoops. Oh, microphone thing's falling off. But yeah, a little bit too much cursing, but I love all of the emotion that we're seeing. And for Kevin, it is his first, which means he's going to get to not have to bowl the PTQ for some of these events now, like the Players Championship and World Championship. He's pre-qualified, yay! Which is a big load off you. It's extra games that you don't have to bowl. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of guys who qualify in the PTQ. So many ways to use the F word. Yeah, absolutely. To not have to bowl in that PTQ, you don't see a lot of guys coming through there and winning because those extra games wear you down. So let's head back here. Now, speaking of throw your shot, there was something that Kyle said, and Kevin kind of backed it up here when he said it on the show in his context. It's something that Norm Duke had said to Kyle, and something that I try to say to bowlers. When you're in a tough position, don't go out and try to throw the best shot. Don't try to go out there and pinpoint it. Don't try to, do all this stuff to throw your best shot. When you try that hard, when you make it that cerebral that you're trying to line everything up, it's been proven. Those messages go through your medulla oblongata. Got all them teeth and no toothbrush. Your medulla oblongata before it goes to your body, as opposed to when it is a regular action, which goes directly from brain to muscle. So that little bit of slowing down by having to think about it more can actually throw you off worse than just going out there and making your shot. There's nobody who can throw your shot, the shot that you've been throwing all tournament, better than you. There's a reason why you're there in a tournament. So if you stop trying to make shots and just make your best shot, you will always bowl better. It's surprising how much subconsciously it weighs on you if you go up there and try it during your practice. Go up there and say, I have to strike this shot no matter what. No matter what, I have to strike. And then go up there the next shot and say, okay, I'm just going to throw a shot. I'm going to try to hit my mark. You'll see a huge difference with even how your body tenses, how you go through your motions. It changes the way that you react to external stimuli. It's why we say in practice, if you can find a way to practice with something on the line, $1, a drink, something to get those competitive juices flowing, to get that anxiety going, when you learn to work with it, when it comes up in tournaments, you're better prepared to deal with it. I can't tell you how many times people go up there on lanes in a tournament, you see them, and they're death gripping the ball, and they're shaking because they're nervous, when they just need to get up there, breathe in, breathe out, and try to make their best shot. Not trying to hit anything, just make my shot. Super Blitz. Sounds like what I have been going through. Had a 225 clean game, first in league play, and lost it the rest of the game. It happens. Some people call it the yips. Some people call it performance anxiety. We are our own worst critic. I say this a lot to people in another life. In between working as a professional wrestler and being a national coach for Team Canada, there was some time where I worked as a professional photographer. I'm published around the world. And one of the things I used to say to people is, don't try so hard. When you try so hard, it's visible. Your body reacts differently. Just be you. Nobody can be you better than you. In league, in tournaments, nobody can do what you do better than you. So just let yourself do it. Accept that, things happen. You might make bad shots. You might make good shots. Okay? Make it part of your pre-shot routine. One of the things that I'll say it a lot. If I'm really down on myself, I'm having a hard time, I'll get up on the lanes, I'll set my position, and the last thing I'll say before I go to throw a shot is I throw good shots. Just breathe in. I make good shots. And go. Just those little cues for your body, it can help relax you, it reassures you, it allows your body to do what you want it to do. So relatable, super. It's like a roller coaster. Absolutely. There are very few sports, if you think about it, where one person has the entire effect on the game, the way that we do. There are lots of games where one person plays and there is scoring, but very few times where every part of the shot is from us. So it can be quite draining physically and quite draining mentally. There are lots of times I've gone to tournaments and I'll come back and I could bowl another 20 games physically. My brain is mush. I've talked to lots of people. We've talked about that cheat sheet that I put out there. There's a reason for it. Your brain, when you get really wound up and you just start to melt down, or you can't think straight, or things are running too fast, just that little reset helps. I hear you, Viper, and it just gets worse and more frustrating, and then you can't get back. Yeah. And the more you try, the more you feel like you get farther and farther away from what you're doing. When in actuality, what you need to do is relax and just be you. Now, if Scoops is on here, he already knows what the number one way to solve this problem is. And, yeah, we're going to go over here and I'm going to show it to you. He's going to love this. So this is a technical thing that we do at tournaments. Old Guy Wayne actually taught this to me. And he gets both Scoops and I to do this when we really get in on ourselves, when we can't get out of our own way. And it's very simple. It goes like this. You take your left hand, you place it on your stomach. You take your right hand, and the jazz hand part is important here. You got to put it on your head. And you got to rub your tummy, and you got to pat your head, and you got to hop on one leg, counterclockwise, and then you got to go throw your shot. You can see how coordinated I am. And there's a reason for this, and somewhere Scoops is laughing his head off. Basically, it was an exercise, a crude one, but an exercise in distracting ourselves. By getting him to tell us, what we got to do, pat your head, rub your tummy, spin around in a circle, rub your belly and pat your head and stand on one leg. See, he knows. First, you feel a little bit foolish. But it completely distracts you from what's going on. It gets you to stop thinking about yourself. Gets you out of your emotional state. It gets you out of, if you've gone into a logic circle and you can't get out of it, so you can't make good decisions, it just changes where your body is functioning, where it's trying to function from. And I will tell you, 100% fact, that both Scoops and I have done this during tournaments, and it has worked. 100%. Simply because it got us out of our own ways. Or walk around the table the other way. Yep, that's another one he does. Boy, for an old guy, he's really knowledgeable. You'd think he'd seen some stuff. That's right, my bowling therapy sessions. The mental part of the game, I wasn't actually prepared to get into this, but the mental part of the game is sometimes I believe it's more important than the physical part of the game. There are people like Tom Smallwood talking to Chuck Gardner, who is just an incredible coach. When Chuck used to work with Tom Smallwood, he didn't really worry about what Tom was doing mechanically, because Tom just throws the ball the way he does. Whatever way he throws the ball that day, that's the way he throws it, and he can repeat it. That's what makes Tom Smallwood so good. But the way he throws it today might not be the way he throws it tomorrow or yesterday. So you just kind of work with him, keep his head in the game, keep people making good decisions, keep them on their toes. Sometimes that's the biggest part of the game. And look at Tom Smallwood. It's not like he's nobody. I wouldn't tell somebody to try to throw the ball different every time, but for him it works. So, now that we're through that, by the way, congratulations on the 225. Nice game. And clean. That's very difficult. That's not an easy task. So great job there, Super Blitz. So, before we go out there again, and I look funny, let's talk about first impressions of the new equipment. Got to throw everything yesterday during warm-up before I bowled, and there was some real surprises in the bag. Of all the 4 balls that I threw, I think probably the most surprising was the Columbia 300 Speed. That ball's got some teeth. You remember we drilled that one for me. We drilled it pin up, a little bit faster response, 50 by 5 by 35, I think it was. Excuse me. And it's got some teeth. Yesterday we were playing, I was having a hard time getting my pink urethane to get enough traction in the front part of the lane, and the speed was a good 4 to 6 feet earlier, and it had way more motion down lane. So really impressed. I can see why Dom really liked that ball. The Brunswick defense, also another surprising one. Having thrown the portal core before in the warp zones, I kind of had an idea how it was going to react. That flip block on the bottom, huge difference. Extreme difference. Even though we drilled it with a slower response layout, something that was going to be a little bit more... we were trying to get a little more continuous, a little bit more lined up so we could play it on the fresh. Wow, is it continuous. That flip block really keeps the ball hooking. I can see why the differential at 0.15. It's closer to the symmetrical side of things, but still asymmetrical. It has a lot of continuation for a traction ball. It reminded me a lot of a symmetrical. Just a really, really strong symmetrical with a short hook zone. Speaking of symmetricals with a short hook zone, the BIGFOOT. In watching it, in throwing it, in working with some layouts, very important. I'm going to suggest to everybody on this, very important that you use your asymmetric drill angles on this one, even though it's a symmetrical ball. This ball is a sneaky asymmetrical ball. Even though it is symmetrical out of the box, as soon as you drill it, it becomes extremely asymmetrical. We saw that on the drill sheet, where that asymmetry goes from 001 to 020. Like, that's a monster jump. So I re-drilled my BIGFOOT. I went with a 55 by 4.5 by 35 layout. I was going to go with the 4.5 by 25, but I was really afraid, being an asymmetric, it was going to be too twitchy down lane. It was going to be just too fast. This ball reminds me of a weaker 3D offset, the motion on it. I think that if you took the shine off of it and hit it with a more surface, you could probably get it pretty close. I like this ball. It looks to me like a real bridge between those two pieces. I could almost, even though it's... I don't like an asymmetrical ball in the late hook spot. But you could probably get the Bigfoot in there with a little bit of work, drilling the fingers a little deeper to raise the RG, and then drilling the thumb a little shallower to keep the differential down. You could fit it in there pretty easily. I think so. Yeah, chat mode is aggressive. 3 times I've changed my mod on this thing, and it just really, really is not friendly. Oh yes, there's one left. The conspiracy scheme. It is, for what we threw on yesterday, it was very deceptive. Right out of the gate, I had said that I had an interest in knowing how it looked compared to the original because of the shine on the cover, and you can see it really quickly, especially on oil. It's definitely much cleaner than the original black one is on the out-of-box surface. Much, much cleaner. Having said that, much sharper angle down lane, the same, if not maybe a board or two more total hook. Much different hitting power as well. It's dynamic core. But yeah, it's much cleaner. So if you have a original black one and you want to match it up, if you're getting a scheme to replace it, don't forget to change the surface on it. You're going to want to take some of that shine off. Otherwise, it's going to be it's probably 3-4 feet cleaner because of that the cover preparation on it. Okay, now we've gotten through that. It's time for some fun. We're going to talk a little bit of physical game tonight. Now, as I said at the top of the episode, we do a lot of our evaluation of bowling, especially timing. We do it from the end of the shot, from the line backwards, because it's a point that most coaches agree where you can do a lot of other things going into it, but if you meet certain timing points, you'll always get to the same point. So if you go from that point at the end and trace it backwards, it becomes a lot easier to find where there's an issue in timing. However, if you have a bad setup, you are starting yourself right away in the wrong direction. And I see this so much. I get questions about this all the time. I get videos sent to me all the time. It's probably the first thing I fix in people because it's the easiest and it's the one that, in theory, can impact your average as a lower average bowler, say 115 below. Can impact your average as quickly as learning how to properly shoot spares. Like, it's very, very important. I'm a little surprised companies haven't caught on. Polish is not a bowler's friend. You would be surprised. You would be very surprised. I know going to different centers in Canada, there's quite a difference in lane conditions. I've been to places like Kitchener, AMF Kitchener, Frederick Lanes, tends to be a much drier house. Barrie, where we are, tends to be a little bit slicker. We have a lot of friction in our heads, but we have slicker lane conditions. You look at places like Brunswick Brampton, very, very dry, very dry. But then you go across to Oshawa, to Leisure Lanes, a great center, very wet. So it just really depends on your style and the center you're in. I know just even driving around Buffalo, there's a ton of different lane conditions. So that's why we always tell people, best thing you can do, and I know Phil disagrees with us. and he is entitled to his opinion, and I'm entitled to mine. I always like to change my surface on a ball before I put it into my bag. When I drill up a fresh ball, other than when I'm doing a review to show what it's like out of box, I change the surface on a ball right away. Simply because I know it's something that I can repeat, I can recreate. So why start getting used to something and evaluating something on a surface that you cannot ever remake? And I know Phil says you can remake, and when we say 500, 1500, it's a 500 and 1500. But we also know, watching CTD and their scanning, their RA scanning, and all the experimentation and analysis that they've done, that 500, 1500 is much different company to company. 500, 1500 Brunswick might be 700 grit. 500, 1500 Storm is 4800 grit. And 500 Motive is like 3,000 LLS. So, absolutely. I like Chuck Gardner. If you go back and watch one of our Going Pros, Chuck Gardner himself said it. Get a ball, hit it with a used 4000 pad, even just to get the shine off and to get whatever product they've treated it with so the balls don't bruise and stick together on the line. Very famous story I've told, Columbia 300 used to use Downy. They used to cover their balls in Downy fabric softener so that when they go down the line they wouldn't hit each other and stick and bruise each other up. So you'd have to, that's why you'd often hear, oh, this ball seemed to wake up after a while. It's like the stuff came off the top and it woke up. Literally, it was getting Downy fabric softener off of it. So ball placement through our setup and through our push away affects so much. It affects our timing. It affects our launch angle. It affects where our explosion points are going to be. How we get the ball into the swing is going to be just as important as how we actually swing the ball. So why don't we move back over here. Put my butt pack back on. Okay. So let's start with a good setup, what we consider a good setup. Now this is coming from myself as a USBC level, silver level coach, Canadian national coach as part of Team Canada, somebody who's coached all over the world. This is some of the things that we look for in a proper setup. So I've got my handy dandy T-zone there, and just right off the bat there, I just made a terrible mistake. You should always pick up your ball with two hands. Picking it up with one hand often gives you an opportunity to have your fingers crushed or your thumb crushed or to hurt your back. So I'm already 0 for 1. So when you have your ball and you're addressing the line, we like to line up from the inside of your non-ball side foot. Now you're going to hear ball side and non-ball side a couple of times today. Basically, ball side means the side that the ball's on. So if you're right-handed, your right foot. Non-ball side, left foot. Makes sense? If you're a left-hander, your ball side is now your left foot, and your non-ball side is your right foot. Whee! So we like to line up with the inside of the foot, the left foot or the non-ball side foot for bowlers, to put that on your line. And we're going to get to where you line up in a minute, but that's where we start. We would like to get your foot along that so we have a consistent place where we know we're going to be starting from. Now this place may change depending on where you are in your game. We all talk about moving boards left and right, but you got to have some place you start from. So when we get set up, I like feet staggered. You can see here. My feet are staggered, so I put the round part of my ball side foot into the arch of my non-ball side foot. It creates a nice offset. You can see it creates a little offset with my hips, little offset with my shoulder. This is going to become important later. But we're starting right from the ground up. We're going to create a good Good position. So now we've got those together. We want a little bit of bend in the knees. I see guys who are down here like this, guys who are moving all around, all this stuff. We want a little bit of bend, just a little bit. Athletic stance, okay? Just a little bit. When you're rigid and standing like this, when you get moving, your body is going to sway as you move. With a little bit of bend, as you move forward, you can see your body slides. It stays on the same plane. When you take a step, your body has to go up and down. So we've got a little bit of bend, okay? Now, the line of play. The line of play is something that you hear from some higher end coaches. Some people call it, you know, where you're bowling. What's your mark? I'd like more people to start referring to it as line of play. It makes it a lot easier. It's the line that goes from the center of your shoulder, out through your arm, through the center of the ball in your hand, out through your mark, all the way out through the end of the lanes. Okay? When you line up, you always want to have that line of play in that position. Now we say we want to know why that's important. Okay, think about it. We have our line of play through our hand here. Okay, you can see our line of play through our hand. When you start moving things around, okay, you get the ball out here. If you're trying to push your ball along that line of play, you have to move your elbow, you got to move your body to get along that line of play. Okay? Same thing, if you've got it too far inside, you've got to move the ball this way. And this is what's going to cause our arm swing to move around. This is going to cause loops. Okay? So it's extremely important. We find that line of play. We line it up here. Now you can see naturally. I do this naturally. This is something that we were taught not to do when we were younger. You can see when we were taught, when us old timers were taught, we were taught feet together, squared shoulders, ball to the outside. Okay? So we are squared shoulders, ball to the outside. Okay? Now look what happens when you drop that ball down. First of all, it's hitting your leg. Okay? Second, it has to go around you. It has to move around you to get into a line. It can't get under your head. It's way outside your body. Okay? For that line of play, but little bend, line of play. So we have dipped one shoulder, we've relaxed it. You can see my elbow is just woo. We've relaxed that. We've created some tilt across. If you notice, it also creates some tilt across our hips. Where your shoulders go, your hips go. Where your shoulders and your hips go, your ball goes. That's just physics. Because when your ball goes this way and your shoulders and your arms are going that way, everything's going that way. Your body's going to follow it. Your ball goes that way, your shoulders and your hips follow. If your body and if your shoulders and your hips are going this way and you try to go a different direction, you're going to be in trouble. So, feet, a little bit of bend, into the line of play. You can see this ball under my ball side eye. Okay? People ask, how do you know your ball's in the right spot? Some people say it's in the middle of your hip. Some people say it's your belly button. Some people say it's the center of your shoulder. If you have your arm lined up along the line of play, the ball should sit under your ball side arm. You can see I've got a little bit of body tilt this way. What this does, when I take my step one and my crossover, Look at this room. All the room in the world for this ball just to go under my head. Very common, you see people, new bowlers, when they go, you'll see them move around the ball. Or because that line of play where they're putting the ball into play right from the very beginning is putting them in a position that they cannot relax and repeat. I'll do a little side view here for you. Little bit of bend, a little bit of bend. Now look at my hand. Look at that. Look at my hand. You see that? I'm not like this. I'm not like this. I'm not back here. I'm not way out here. Neutral hand position. Just about belt high. Easy peasy. Right? Right under the eye. Okay. So, you can see that when I was leaning forward a little bit there, I have just a tiny bit of spine tilt here. You can see my spine goes just a little bit forward. Now I often, because I have a bad back, I often will over pronate here. I love those guys you see come in the league and they're like down here holding the ball. Makes it difficult, okay? You want about 15 degrees, okay? So if this is dead straight up, add a little bit of bend in the knees and a tiny bit of bend forward. Very little bit. And you can tell if you're doing it wrong because your hip's here. If you have too much, see how my butt starts to stick out? Boop. It's a fat butt, so it's a lot to stick out here. So it's easy for me to see. But for all of you, for all the rest of you, if your butt starts to come out, you know you're going too far. Another way to tell, if you look down, if your nose here is ahead of this toe, all your weight's shifted too far forward. I like to put my weight on both my heels. I evenly distribute it between the two. So that way when I take my first step, it's just a slide. Okay? Just a nice slide. And it doesn't even have to be very long. Boop. But all that is set up by this proper setup here. Okay? Boom, boom, boom. Okay? And you think about it from this position, when you take your crossover step, straight through, same thing with your slide, straight through under your head. So your arm never has to move. You have a perfect swing slot through your entire shot, which means you don't have to muscle it, you don't have to try to pull it back or push it out. It just has to flow straight forward. Amazing how that happens, isn't it? Go over to the questions here for a second. Broke a pinky finger when I was 10 because picked up a, oh yeah, that would hurt. Chris Prather is a living endorsement that perfect floating. Yeah, no, he barely moves. Looks like he moves around the ball. Okay, so now we're getting into placement. This is a good time to talk about that. We've created this great position to start from. Okay, nice relaxed shoulders. We're keeping our got that nice little bit of spine tilt, but we're keeping our butt in. There are different kinds of push-aways, okay? Now there is kind of a standard one, which we see a lot in our good bowlers, okay? You'll see that full extension straight out and back. That's pretty common. When you get a slightly higher level, you can actually use your push away to, oh, excuse me, I got a sneeze coming on. It's going to be terrible at some point. I apologize in advance. You can use your, excuse me, how you put the ball into the swing as part of your timing. For myself, okay, nice position here. I push the ball down into the swing, just down, and let it go. Because of my leg strength, because of my arm strength, well, let me tell you a story. In 2013, when I went to the World Series, and there's video of this, my backswing was atrocious. I pushed that way, and my arm went up like this, and then through. There was lots of pulling, there was lots of motion, there were too many moving parts. And even though I had a high rev rate, it was because I was muscling everything. Everything I had to do, I had to increase my muscle input to line all of my timing up. Now, by placing the ball down a little bit and not full extension, I go about 6 inches and let it come in, you're creating a rounder shape. It allows you to control it. It puts it already into the swing. And because of that, I went from an L or leverage 3. So my timing when I'd get to the line, my ball would be back here. My timing is now at leverage 1. I'm right here. My rev rate actually goes up. When I muscle the ball, my rev rate's between 430 and 460. When my timing lines up, I've been able to hit 500. Not a lot, I can't do it consistently, I'm no EJ Tackett. But by lining up your timing, you can have a significant increase in your rev rate because the ball is at the right spot at the right time. Now, some people do that. They take that, placing the ball into the swing out and down a little bit, they take that to the next level. We call it a hinge. Very common with your college players. Best example I think I've ever seen is Bill O'Neill. Okay? Bill O'Neill, EJ does this as well. When he gets into his swing, he takes his step and he drops it. He has no push, no push. He just and drop. Okay? It keeps him from moving it around this way. It keeps you from affecting your swing slot. You're using gravity. And you just boop. Very, very common on the professional level, you'll see it. EJ Tackett does it. Bill O'Neill does it. Even Robert Smith, if you look at him, his timing is much more of a drop into the swing rather than push away. But when he was younger, he had a killer push away. Just ridiculous. Now, oh, this is a really good one. I get this all the time. So, everybody loves this hand position. This is everybody's favorite cranker hand position. This hand position, right? The hand way under the ball, all of this stuff tensed. The problem is you're now activating your wrist muscles. You're activating your grip in your hand. You're activating your forearm, your bicep, your shoulder, all the way through here. This chain, this kinetic chain is no longer free-flowing. When you tense like that, the more you tense up, the harder it is to get your timing lined up and to allow your muscles to do the thing they're supposed to. When you tense up like this, your first reaction when the ball comes away is this. Very common to see people do this. They come away just a little bit like that, away from their body. because when you do this, the natural, look at the way your body's built, it naturally flexes inward. So if you're flexing it, it's naturally going to move inward. Same thing at the top of the swing, okay? When you pull that shoulder around and you start pulling it down, your hand has to come to the side. Okay, so you're already around it, you're already away from your body. Relaxing, okay? I got news for you. Look at backswings. Look at Kyle Sherman. Look at your two-handers. I said this last episode. They have no backswings. Their backswings are shoulder high, and yet they're still throwing 19 and 20 mile an hour. Because they know and they've accepted that from here, from the top of your wrist through your shoulder, this is only for guidance. This is your missile guidance system, okay? No muscle input at all. This is just to hang on to the ball and keep it going straight. All your rev rate comes from here, from your wrist below, and all your power comes from your legs. 100%. Look at guys who have big arm swings. They're not throwing it faster than your two-handers. If it was all arm swing, they'd be throwing it 30 mile an hour, like Osku can. That's just muscle. And less is more, absolutely. That cranker position, hard to get your thumb out of the ball. It can be very hard to get your thumb out of the ball at that position. So we talked a little bit about the position this way, where we want to drop the shoulder a little bit. You also want to have a little bit of your non-bowling arm in front, or shoulder, in front of your bowling shoulder. Okay? This is created with that position for this. Very common position we see. The flying T. Okay? From the top of the swing through that front arm. Okay, so you need that front shoulder. If that shoulder is back, first, if this shoulder is back and you try to push the ball, you automatically push it away from you. You can see that. If I try to pull my shoulder back and push it straight, I'm still not pushing it straight. Same thing as if you have too much body roll this way. Trying to throw it straight this way, even though it creates a good body position, it's not, you lose some leverage. Now this is me, I have body issues. I've had some injuries over the years, 1 or 2. I have very bad flexibility in my back. So when I set up, you'll often see this elbow come out, and I actually hold that ball in spot. Very similar to a two-handed bowler. And it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. We use a lot of one-handed skills, and we adapt them for two-handers. There are things that two-handers do much better than us that you can actually do as a one-hander. One of these is this. If you think body position through the line of play, we always want that hand underneath taking some of that weight out. Even if you take your arm to get it out there and then place it back, it creates that body tilt for you. You can also see I've got some tilt in my hips. We've talked about this before. The tilt in the shoulders and the tilt in the hips is imperative for getting the ball to the right as a right-hander, projecting the ball if you're trying to open up your launch angles. If you are square and you try to open up your launch angles, the only way you can do that is push the ball away from you. But when we have that good position and that good shoulder position, it's very easy to create that same position. You can see that your shoulder lines up, straight. This is difficult because this is heavy, and through. I should probably get a lighter ball to do this with. Doing it with a 15-pound ball is probably not the best thing. So when you go bowling this week, what I'd like you to at least attempt, look at where you're bowling to. If you're bowling over, say you're lining up to throw over second arrow, 10 board, I want you to draw a line from the center of your arm through your ball, through the 10 board, all the way down to where you want to see it down lane, so that you can have a representation of where you want that ball to go, where your swing plane is. Okay? Just try that. Try little things. Little bit of arm, a little bit of lean, just a tiny bit so we can create that room for the ball to go under. It also makes it very easy for our crossover step. I'll move back a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. I'll get lined up. See how easy that was for my crossover step? Super easy. It puts everything in line so each piece builds onto the next one. Now, I'm not saying, I want to be very clear about this, I'm not saying that you have to do everything exactly the way I do. One of the things that I love about coaching, it's probably one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard, excuse me, is everyone is unique. Everybody's body is unique, everyone's style is unique. If it wasn't, we'd all be doing the exact same thing, we'd all be robots. So when you're developing your style, you also have to take into account your injury history, your strengths and weaknesses, your flexibilities. Not everything that I'm saying you may be able to do. There may be limitations on your body, through injury, through flexibility. There's many different things. But the more things that you can incorporate into your uniqueness, the more your uniqueness becomes repeatable. And once it's repeatable, you can make adjustments off of it. When you can't repeat a shot, when you can't hit the same area, when you can't play along the same line of play, you can't make informed moves. Because if you don't throw the ball the same way twice, how are you going to know it's going to react that way? You know, I make a 2-board move and I don't throw it right, well, how do I know if it was the move or because I didn't hit it right or I was late on my timing or whatever? You can't make good, smart moves. All right, coming back over here to the computer. Boop. By the way, if you're wondering this hat, this is my Perfect Sport hat. Perfect Sport make fine health products. I'm not sponsored by them, but I use all of their products. Part of how I lost 100 pounds over the pandemic and gained a ton of strength. You think over the 18 months of the pandemic, I increased my deadlift to over 400 pounds, my squats to just under 400 pounds, my bench presses to 250, which isn't bad for a guy with no shoulder. I mean, I could bench press more than my own body weight, so that's pretty good. So, yeah, I love these guys. They always take care of me. Their protein is awesome too because it's lactose free, so it doesn't give you the bubbling tummies. So, but yes, that was our look at setup, foot position, and how to start your shot in a much better way. As I said, the more that you can work these points into your uniqueness, the better that you will bowl. The one thing I cannot stress enough is do not abandon what you do well to learn something that you don't. You want to make your weaknesses your strengths. Work till your weaknesses are your strengths, but don't forget what your strengths are. Okay, I've been through this as somebody who can throw the ball hard. Learning to create ball speed differences took a lot of getting used to. You can ask Scoops. When I came back after our layoff, because we were off bowling for like a year and a half, 2 years, I had to re-drill everything. I had to completely change my arsenal because my speed, I was able to generate 4 or 5 mile an hour more on my ball speed than I could before, and suddenly none of my stuff hooked. So, yeah, you got to be cognizant of that kind of stuff. All right, last thing we're going to do before we go away, the thing we do every time before we finish up, is we're going to go to the internet and we're going to answer some questions. We got tons of questions since the last show. A lot of questions. So I'm going to roll over there right now. Let me see here if I can actually get it to open up. I can see them. Unfortunately, you guys can't. Let's see here. Movies. Bowling movies. Josh Heder starred in one. I don't know which one it was. John Heder bowling movie. Why Jeff Tried to Save the World. 1998, maybe? Yeah, I think that's it. I have not watched it, but I'm going to have to watch it now if it's another bowling movie. Joshua brought up a good point. When we talked about our arsenal construction, he said, since you brought up the Kegel arsenal construction, does that mean your ideas in ball motion 2 are out the window? No. If you go back and watch some of our other trainings, I did a ball motion 1 and a ball motion 2. At the time, the ball motion 2 that we did was based on being able to have weight holes. Unfortunately, that's out of date now. The new one we have kind of accounts a little bit more for that. There may be another revision coming to it soon. A lot of people have also asked, well, this doesn't take into account somebody's tilt or this or that and the other thing. Got to remember that this is a baseline. This is where you start. So you can look at that and say, okay, I have lower tilt. Those 5-inch pins, probably pin to paps, aren't going to work for me. Probably going to go to a 3-inch pin to pap instead, so it'll retain tilt. I have way too much tilt, so maybe those 5-inch pins become a 5.5-inch pin, so it loses more tilt. There are going to be some adjustments, but that's what what a good trained pro shop operator is for, and why you need to know what your stats are, what your tilt, your ball speed, your rotation, and your rev rate. And like I said, they don't have to be exact, but you got to have an idea. Do I have high tilt, low tilt, medium match tilt? Do I have high speed? Am I rev dominant, speed dominant, matched? Things like that really make a difference, especially when you're talking to a good pro shop operator. I have been supremely lucky. Most of the pro shop operators I've worked with over the years are master drillers. Guys like Mark Buffa and Mo, and guys who eat, sleep, and breathe drilling, like Bill Rowe, probably one of the best amateur bowlers ever out of Canada. And I say amateur just because he didn't have as much time as a spotlight tour guy as, say, like a Frankie or a Mitch, our newer guys. But he deserved it. He was insanely good. And he still is. He every once in a while, he just comes out and grabs some equipment and bowls a tournament and usually makes the cut. Like, he's just that good. But find yourself a good quality pro shop. I had a gentleman call me from Colorado last week because he didn't have a pro shop and he was hoping to find someone to help him. So I did my best to try to help him find something in his area. I don't know if he has. If he can't, I've already told him to send me information and I'll help him out. So that's why it's important to have a good pro shop operator. And just as an aside here, don't be afraid to interview your pro shop operator. Just like your coach, know what their qualifications are. Know what they've done, who they've drilled for, experience, training, how long they've been doing it. Ask those questions if you want to. It's not insulting. The only person who's going to be insulted is somebody who's not trained. Okay, because like when I first got my training, like straight out of training, I was like, oh my God, yes, everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to know. Okay? Years later, I tell people if they want to know. There's no downside to being trained. because you can tell people you're trained. If you're not trained, if you're the quote-unquote garage pro shop, and you have no training and no experience, then a lot of this stuff's not going to make sense to you, and you shouldn't be using those. There are good garage pro shops, but once again, interview them, take the time, ask questions. What have they won? Hey coach, who have you worked with? Who have you coached that's any good? You know, what experience do you have? What training do you have? Hey, pro shop guy, who have you drilled for? It's not insulting to ask. They might be confused off the bat, but if you tell them, look, I just want to make sure I have the best pro shop guy, they're going to thank you for it. And if they don't, well, maybe you should be worried. Let's see here. Another one. Shouldn't the Spectre have gone through USB-C testing? Yes, it had. That's why I posited that thought, 5,000 balls would be 70. How many get sent for testing? Maybe they sent the first X to testing with one formula and it was very good. And then when they went to production, something happened during the production of the, I think it's RS3 or R3S cover stock. Something happened during the production of those chemicals that is different than what was sent to be tested or to be approved. So we don't know what happened there. Storm has been very upfront and said, no, nothing's wrong. We don't agree with USB-C. But I've also seen people like Beans who went on and just grabbed a durometer and just did it by hand, and his out of box was already at like 67 or 68. And it wasn't even drilled yet. So, yeah, something happened in between when they were certified and when they were produced to that cover stock that caused a problem. I don't think Storm did it on purpose. I think it's some kind of either chemical reaction or a problem with whoever they got the chemicals from. Probably a good lawsuit in there. So, yeah. We talked about foot placement. Why is bowling ball hardness such a big deal? It's a great question. So when we look at a bowling ball, we see it from a very realistically, we see it from a very far vantage point. Even if you're, right beside the ball and it's this far away, you're not seeing it on a microscopic level. The softer a surface is, the more it spreads out across another surface. Think of a marshmallow. If you take a marshmallow and you place it on top of a piece of glass, it'll sit there and won't do much. If you apply some kind of force to it, it'll spread out. Same thing with a bowling ball. When you throw the ball, when you add rotational forces as well as speed forces to it, you create friction between the two surfaces that are touching, but B, if it's softer, more surface touches, which creates more friction. The more friction, the more the ball is able to deal with the oil, so it's going to be able to slow down. That's why people love them 16, 17 hammers, because when they get super soft, they cover much, much more surface, which means they can deal with much more friction. They can create much more friction. Like a tire with low air pressure. You got it. So yeah, the softer the ball, and I have heard rumors that some of these are coming out of the box at 62 and 63. So it's obviously a chemical issue. It's not Storm's fault. So it's yeah, Scoops brings it up, the old bleeders. Guys used to soak them in acetone to soften them up. Ask the old guys about soaking old urethane and old rubber balls to make them softer. There's a reason why they increased the durometer a few years ago too. You used to be able to buy balls with a 68 to 70 durometer surface out of box, but they got rid of that That's why they're hook monsters. Yep, because they literally talk about, they call it a footprint, and it's literally what it is. The more the ball touches the lane, the more of it that can touch the lane, the more friction it can create, the more it can smooth it out, the more it can control the pocket. Ron Hicklin's got apparently a study coming up where they're going to like freeze some balls and heat some balls and all sorts of stuff to really change. They're gonna soak one in acetone to really soften it up. So I'm excited to see that. I can hardly wait to see what they're going to do there. I can remember in my younger days, one of the bowlers we bowled with had a urethane hammer. Actually, sorry, it was a nitro, a blue nitro. He was a little older than us, but he used to bowl with us all the time, and he had a blue nitro that used to get acetoned, and that thing you could almost lay fingerprints on. Now, not mean like fingerprint residue, like you could press your fingers into it, and you could almost see dents in the ball. Like, it was soft. Good old Scotty. So, yeah. That's about it for that. Let's go back to questions. Thank you, Joshua. Family first is always important. Oh, I don't know if you guys noticed. A press release went out this week. I have returned to Team Canada for another 2 years, so I'm I am continuing to be a national coach, so that's going to be fun. It's going to mean I get to work with some wicked athletes, such as Zach, somebody's mentioned in here, Frankie, Felicia Wong, Cody McMaster, maybe Nathan. I always have a hard time with his name. The three-part Nathan from Canada, I have to get better at his name. Nathan. I'll get it later. Mitch Hupe. All these guys. I get to work with these guys more. I feel blessed. As a coach, it makes your job a lot easier to work with these incredibly talented bowlers. And I know I've left people out there. I wasn't going to mention everybody. I might get to work with Valerie again. Valerie's been off. She just had an adorable little child. Just the cutest little thing. I wonder if she will be back on team this year, or if she'll be back out on the PBA. It'll be nice to see her. What other questions we got? Oh, Jay, I love this. I never got the yo-yo thing. I got a lot of comments from people about the thumb following the fingers rather than that yo-yo comment. A lot of people find that a lot easier to understand. My guess is the whole R3S pearl that was created was messed up. Yep, same idea, Bra Guy. Will Brunswick plastic bowling balls use new technology, Dynamicore? I doubt it, Scotty. Dynamicore is reserved for higher-end releases because it is a larger expense to put it in. While I would love to see Dynamicore in something like a T-Zone or something like that, I just don't think financially it's fiscally responsible for Brunswick to create something like that. But that would definitely be pretty cool. I would love it if my Spy had Dynamicore. Just while I'm saying that, I better check to make sure it doesn't actually have. Make sure it doesn't actually have, because I didn't think it did. Yeah, it is Dynamicore. See, that's why I love my Spy. You should love your Spy too, Scotty. I didn't think it was in there, but it would make sense because this is more than just an entry line. This is more, I would call this more of a medium advanced, a performance polyester ball. But in a regular polyester plastic ball, probably not going to see Dynamicore, unfortunately. And I think that's where I'm going to cut it off for a little bit. I'm going to answer the questions that are left in the chat area here. I think swimming through the shot. That's a great one. I like that. That's really good. Super Blitz, that's an awesome one. Swimming through the shot. Let me see here. Meant to show you the screenshot I took. Caught a glimpse of Zach in one of Darren Tang's videos. Yeah, he's been on some of the house and some of the Brad and Kyle videos. He's doing doing well out there on the tour. Zach is a very good bowler. I think one of these times, because he's won a lot of tournaments all around the U.S., one of these times he's going to catch it on the tour. And I think that's all it's going to take. Once he wins his first one on tour, even if it's a regional, once he gets that, he's going to be difficult. Because he's going to have that confidence lift and it's going to relax him. He already throws the ball so good. Like, that little bit extra confidence would make him deadly. Polyester on steroids, that's right. Now, somebody asked a question up here about tilt, about pin placement and tilt. And that is a great question. We talk about it quite a lot. Where is it here? Explain how tilt relates to pin to pap. So we use pin to pap to create the motion, to create the flare pattern on our ball, but we also use it to maximize certain forces to make a ball do things that it doesn't always do. For instance, for low tilt players, if you use a 5-inch pin for someone who's a very low tilt player, the ball will tend to clip their finger or their finger and their thumb. It will also tend not to leave that area for quite a while, or sometimes flare backwards. What happens is the ball becomes so unstable, it doesn't have a chance to make the motion. Which is why we use, for low tilt players, instead of a 5-inch, we use a 3-inch pin to pap. What it does is it retains tilt. So rather than tall pin positions help the ball fall over and roll forward, with low tilt bowlers, because it's already rolling lower, the shorter pin distance on asymmetrical balls retains their axis tilt. So instead of falling down quick, it stays like this for a little longer because it's naturally going to fall down. What does that mean? TLDR, your low tilt players, if your ball isn't rotating off of your first line, or it's rotating backwards towards your thumb and fingers, that ball is going to thump a lot. It's going to be very inconsistent. It's going to run out of energy too early. It's going to roll too early. Oftentimes, you'll see this by hitting the pocket and having really weak leaves. Really weak leaves. We've said this before. Where you want the ball to roll is about 5 feet before the pins. If you're a low tilt bowler and you've got that ball rolling 15 feet before the pins, it's going to run out of energy. It's just going to have nothing. We call it the dead fish hit. The hit's like a marshmallow, things like that. So for our low tilt players, we tend to give them more asymmetric equipment so we can keep some tilt. We also use more layouts that are symmetrical. Symmetrical balls don't have the same abilities that asymmetrical balls do. So a short pin symmetrical ball will not retain tilt the same way an asymmetrical ball will. So we can use those pin positions and the core type to better match up to our bowler. Our matched bowler can use a mix of symmetrical and asymmetricals. Your low tilt bowler is going to use more symmetrical balls, or balls with symmetrical layouts, or balls that retain tilt. High tilt players are going to use long pins and lots of surface, so the ball loses tilt as quickly as possible and rolls. People with low tilt tend to struggle on drier lanes. People with high tilt tend to struggle on wetter over-under lanes because the ball becomes very inconsistent as it's dropping in. I hope that answered everything. That's why another one of those things, how it's so important to find out these personal bowling characteristics before you go and drill up equipment. You know, I spent 2 years drilling 5-inch pins when I was low tilt, and my average dropped 20 pins because I'm just destroying the pocket. I'm beating the tar out of it, but I can't carry because I got no energy. You know, another important thing that a lot of people don't understand, And this is not only a Moism, many people have said this to me. What you throw in House League is probably not what you're going to throw in a tournament. Certain layouts look much better on tournament patterns where you have fresher back ends, flatter lanes, than they do on house shots where you have lots of oil in the middle and friction to the outside. So there will be times where things from your tournament bag look awful, like just terrible. But no, it's because you're using them for the wrong thing. Make sure that when the equipment that you're bringing to bowl in for league is, reflective of what you're going to be bowling on. Don't bring all your dry lane slow stuff for wet lanes. Don't bring all your fast response stuff for dry lanes. It's common sense stuff, but it bears saying just so people can keep it in their minds. Parker told us that as well. Yeah, absolutely. Parker's a smart guy. If you ever get a chance to sit down and do a clinic with Parker, I highly recommend it. Also, if you can get in and do a clinic with Chuck Gardner or Chuck II, amazing guys to work with, very knowledgeable. Also, he does not get enough credit, but Jason Couch. Jason Couch is hella smart. You don't become a champion like he has without knowing a little bit, and I don't think people give him a credit for how smart he is. He is very, very knowledgeable. So there's one last thing I wanted to talk about. One last thing, and it's kind of weird. We were talking tonight about foot position, lining your feet up and having your feet kind of set like this. Now, we also talked about having our shoulders and our hips, they kind of follow that offset. It creates room for us to project the ball, but it also is how we increase our launch angle to get the ball away from us. Don't be afraid, okay? Just because we line up that front part of our foot with our line of play, don't be afraid to move your heel off the line of play a little bit. Okay? I'm not talking like addressing the line of play like this, but you might have a couple of boards difference from your heel to your toe. What this does, as we said, the ball follows the body, follows the shoulders, follows the hips. By creating a little bit more body angle, we can create an easier way to increase our launch angle and get the ball farther away from us, throw it away from us. So please always remember that. Just because we're lining up on the line of play, don't be afraid to angle yourself just a little bit. If you watch me, when Mo and I worked together in Tennessee a couple of years ago, the very first thing he did, because I have almost no shoulder left. I played baseball for years. Another thing that I did, I told you I'm a Homer Simpson. I played baseball and my shoulder is pretty screwed up. They said at some point I should have a shoulder replacement, but I don't have time for that. I guess I should have been a better baseball player, probably. But for me, I have a little bit of angle, more angle on my body, because I lack the flexibility to go straight back with my shoulder. When I go back like this, I have a very small flexibility. So, shoot, I just took that off. Where am I here? We'll go back over here just for a second. So for me, I have very restricted flexibility this way. So if you'll notice when I line up, like most two-handers, I offset my hips even more. This creates even more area for my arm to get past. And if you look, my arm almost comes out sideways here when I'm lining up, because of my restriction, my body restriction with my flexibility. You'll see with two-handers, I'm just going to put this down for a second, and I'll talk real loud. With two-handers, okay, so we've got that two-handed, we've created that box. And we'll talk more about this another time. They have a restriction and flexibility. They can only go back so far. You know, that arm only goes back so far. That's why you see a lot of two-handers, when they line up, their body is already creating that spot for that ball to go through, and their arm goes straight back. So, could be something for those of you who have shoulder injuries, limitations on your shoulder flexibility. Look at your two-handers, okay? Your two-handed setup. Well, what is this to... Huh. Pretty amazing how close that is, isn't it? They're all the same concepts. All the same concepts. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Back to the questions. Had a squatch solid that didn't match up with my game. Had it re-drilled with a different layout. It flared close to my middle finger and away from my thumb. Wow. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. It flared close to my middle finger. Yeah, and away from your thumb. So it's going like this way. So it was, wow. Which is opposite of how all of my other balls flared. Yeah, that definitely sounds like something's happened with the core orientation, and it's not rolling the way it should be. So that might be an issue. Had front 10 Sunday in a tournament, 11th ball smacked the pocket for a 7-9. Oh, yikes! That's, you know what? We had a guy, Nick Ciccolini, last night who left 2 8-10s. When you leave stuff like that, if you're a left-hander and leave a 7-9 or right-hander and leave an 8-10, it's a perfect tap. That's what they used to call it in the old days. It's generally a bad rack or weird deflection if the ball has hydroplaned a little bit. It's just generally bad luck. Like, I feel for you. That sucks. That really sucks. Let's see here. Dang, that sucks. Yeah, bowled with a guy last night. Opened in the 7th. Yeah, one of our local left-handers, Ron. He threw a 267. Missed a 7-pin. The only thing he missed the entire night. We actually had last night. We had 4 shots at 300s in our league. They did a change to our pattern and did some adjusting to our lane machine, and it was pretty open for scoring last night. There was a lot of high scores, so it was pretty rocking. Never bowled one. Got back into bowling this year after a few years off. So climbing back into it, yeah. You know what? If you take the time to make those small changes, it's bowling is an easy sport. Bowlers make it difficult. I cannot stress that enough. Bowling is a simple sport. You roll the ball at some pins, you try to get a certain angle of entry, all the pins fall down. You can pretty much guarantee if you hit a certain place with a certain angle of entry that you will strike every time. When you involve a bowler, all hell breaks loose. So the easier you can make it for yourself, keep it simple, the faster you can get back into it. We had a guy, Wayne Blakely, who was a one-handed bowler for years. He got into two-handed. The first thing he did was learn the little things so he could just relax and just let his body flow. Guys went from like a 190 average to a 230 average. Just take the time, do it so you can repeat it. You're golden. Okay, I think that's about it for tonight. We're an hour and a half in. That's a good time to cut it loose. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Ball skids way past the break point. Yeah, sounds like it deflected hardcore. Yeah, that would make sense. If it caught a little bit more oil, and just slid even, 6-8 inches extra down the lane before it picked up. Puts it 6 or 8 inches farther down before it gets behind the head pin. Instead of going 1, 2, 5, splitting the 8, 9, now it's gone 1, 2, 5, rolls directly over the 8 pin, leaves the 9, and then because it's so high on the head pin, it's leaving a 7. So, yep. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. As always, adore this show. Love being able to interact with you all. Love to be here to answer your questions. As always, if you want to send us a question, send it to lanesidereviews@live.com or find us on any one of our social media platforms. Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, we're not on that hub one, though. We're not. Don't look for scoops on that one. There's a pole and some lace, and it's just, don't do it. But yeah, find us on social media. Send us your questions. Don't forget Pro Shop horror stories. We want to hear your horror stories, things you've seen, things that you've had happen to you. You can put them in on our Reddit page. We have a subreddit just for our horror stories. All of our episodes are up the next day on YouTube. So if you don't catch them here on Twitch live, you can always catch them in replay. But we'd love to have you here on Twitch. We're at 72 followers right now. When we get to 100, we're going to give away more stuff. Plus, if we haven't heard from the person who won the Parker Bone poster, if we don't hear from them by the time we hit 75, which is only 3 more people, we're going to give it away again. We'll give them a couple of weeks to get to us, but if once we hit 75, whoever's in that 75, if we don't hear from them, we'll just give it away again. Somebody's going to enjoy that thing. I guarantee. But yeah, come back, follow us here on YouTube or Twitch or wherever you find us. Don't forget to look out for our new reviews. As I said, we're going to be shooting new reviews this weekend, so they should be up next week. We should be back next Tuesday. I believe next Tuesday we're going to be here, and we're going to talk about the Open Championships. Just started this week. The teams, I think just today, the teams are showing up. So we're going to... No, Scoops can't win again. We're going to talk about arsenal construction. A lot of people have wanted a little bit more in-depth talk about reasons why we're selecting things. So we can get into that. We can talk about why we play different things at the Open Championships and what we're expecting. No PBA. There's the Collegiate Challenge this weekend. We may discuss that, but no new PBA events this week. So we'll do more of this. And coming up over the next few weeks, we'll get more into some more technical stuff with our actual physical bowling. We'll get into some Pro Shop stuff. I know you guys have asked for some stuff on better ideas for plugging, better ideas for drilling, all sorts of cool stuff. So we'll get into the shop and we'll do whatever you want in the shop. We'll actually grab a ball and we're going to go from start to finish, and you guys are going to pick everything, and then we're going to drill it. And then we'll do a review on it. So that's going to be pretty cool. Just going through my notes. I'd forget everything if I didn't write things down. Yeah, I think we got it all. Incredible. Yeah. You guys are awesome. You make this show really easy. Because we can interact, we can answer questions. This show really is about you. So the more you comment, the more you put stuff out there, the more we're going to do. So until next time, guys, I am... the Bearded Beast, Rob Johnson. I just love my Chiron. Almost... Where'd the ham bone go? Ham bone! I am the Bearded Beast, Rob Johnson. And we'll see you laneside, guys. Shoot, I lost the outro button again.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a show. So until next time, guys, we'll see you laneside.